This is one of the best stories I've ever told, so make sure you watch it to the end and you'll be amazed. Interested? Then let's go. Victor occupied a double compartment in a luxury-class train car, which consisted of 2 rooms, a living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. Traveling alone was very convenient for him as no one disturbed him, and he could afford such a journey. Today, he was traveling to the city he had left 3 years ago after a scandal, and now, sitting by the window, he remembered how it all started. He first met Emma at a wedding where he was a guest on the groom's side. His attention was caught by a beautiful blue-eyed girl with light hair, the bride's friend. He noticed a tall young man, dressed in the latest fashion, seemingly courting Emma, but being attentive and observant by nature, Victor noticed they were not a couple. Thus, he invited Emma for a few dances during which he flirted with her extensively. Smiles and harmless flirting turned into conversations, and, without any real hope, Victor asked her out on a date. Emma surprisingly agreed. This did not go unnoticed by the young man who had his designs on Emma and was present at the wedding with his friends. During a musical break, Victor stepped into the men's room where the young man and his friends approached him and rudely told him to leave Emma alone. A brief fight ensued. Victor washed his hands and returned to the hall where the music resumed, and he again danced with Emma. Her previous suitor never showed up again. The master of ceremonies then organized a series of contests in which Victor and Emma participated. By this time, Victor was a coveted bachelor. He had started his own business, which brought him a beautiful profit and was continuously expanding. He owned several cafes and a magnificent hotel with a restaurant in the city center. He was now actively developing cargo and passenger transport. The office of his main enterprise was located downtown near the hotel, and there was also a manager, although Victor himself stayed in the background, fully controlling the operations of the enterprise he had created. After meeting at the wedding, Emma and Victor began dating. He inquired about her companion at the wedding, to which Emma laughingly said he appeared before the wedding as a friend of the bride, used to live in their district, had moved to the regional center, and was visiting his grandmother, who lives near the bride's parents' cottage. After the wedding, he seemingly disappeared, probably returning to his own place. Emma finished her studies and unexpectedly informed Victor that she had got a job at a construction firm, whose office was also located downtown. This was surprising because Victor wanted to hire her as an engineer in his office, but he knew the construction firm's workers and was friends with its founder. They discussed Emma's work, and he gave her a raise, saying he couldn't promote her any higher. A year later, he proposed to Emma, they got married, and Emma moved in with him. Victor didn't tell her he was the owner of a large business, although he hinted at the possibility of her working in the office next door. 11 days later, the founder of the firm where Emma worked warned Victor that he had hired someone named Ethan as a department head. They investigated and found out that he frequently changed jobs due to inappropriate behavior towards women, managing to escape from jealous husbands, which explained his constant job changes. However, as a specialist, he was competent. Victor spoke with Emma and warned her to stay away from Ethan. Still, Victor learned that Ethan, evaluating the new team, attempted to court her. On that day, Ethan was found beaten in the company's underground parking lot, having been warned not to linger around. Stay away from Ethan, to which she said, I could complain to my brother, and then serious troubles could ensue. I don't want your brother to end up behind bars. Jack is already on the edge, involved in extorting businessmen. He has his own team that would do anything he orders, and he runs the whole city. I know you don't want to be friends with him, Emma. I prefer a legal, legitimate business, but you never tell me what you do in your office. I'm an economist, and I work, and as a result, we have everything: a beautiful cottage, a car, and we don't deny ourselves anything. We travel wherever you wish. 11 days before Christmas, Victor went on a business trip a few hours' drive from the city to finalize an important contract, expecting serious negotiations. Around 4 p.m., he called Emma to ask how she was doing. Everything's fine. 1 more hour of work and then home. What time will you be back? Around 10 p.m., since the negotiations haven't started yet, and there are many issues to be discussed. Okay, I will be home by 9:30. Tomorrow's a day off. Great. Let's go ice skating. All right, love you, and sorry, my battery is dying. I need to change my phone. We'll buy you an iPhone at the shopping center, a modern one. Everything didn't go as Victor had anticipated. The negotiating party laid the already signed documents on the table, practically freeing Victor to head home earlier than expected. He got in his car, handed the documents to his lawyer Kevin, and they drove back. On the way, Victor instructed what essentially had been bought out the ownership of a series of service stations in the district. Around 7 p.m., he dropped off Kevin near his house and arrived at his cottage, which was dark, although Emma had claimed she would be home. He opened the doors, entered the house, and, since his phone had finally died, he used the landline to call Emma, but unexpectedly her friend Natalie answered. "Hello, who's this?" "I'm Victor, Emma's husband. Where is she?" "Oh, she's currently dancing with Ethan, and she left her phone on the table." "Where are you?" "We are at the restaurant by the Central Hotel." Understandably, the hotel and restaurant belonged to him and were located nearby. 20 minutes later, without undressing, he walked into the hall and witnessed his wife dancing with Ethan the salsa. During the dance, they came close to him. Emma saw her husband and wanted to say something, but at that moment, Ethan, dancing, suddenly stood in front of her, winked at Victor, which was a mistake. Victor's fist landed squarely on Ethan's head, knocking him out cold on the floor. Men nearby intervened and pulled Victor away from Ethan. Within a minute, the police detained Victor, and 10 minutes later, they took him away to the station. What happened in the restaurant afterward, Victor neither knew nor cared about. He spent the night in a holding cell. In the morning, he was taken to court where the duty judge gave him 15 days for disorderly conduct. "You're lucky, young man. The victim didn't press charges, but you still haven't explained why you hit him, sir. It's written in the case file out of disorderly conduct." "Well, I think 15 days will be enough for you to reflect on your behavior. Next, please." Back in the holding cell, Victor asked the warden to allow him to speak with his lawyer. Kevin came an hour later, bringing him a blanket and some groceries. They were allowed to talk. Victor arranged to meet with him in 10 days. "Kevin, buy me a new phone. My battery died. And I'm entitled to phone calls according to the daily schedule. And move my car from the restaurant parking lot to the cottage. What will you do next?" "Kevin, I have plenty of time to think ahead. They don't even take us out to clear the snow here. And it wouldn't hurt you to do that, you know? I warned that louse what would happen if I saw him near my wife, and he still winked at me. So I closed that eye for him. There's another problem after they released him from the police. A patrol found him unconscious and severely beaten. He's now in the trauma ward. I had nothing to do with it. I was in the lockup at that time. So I have an alibi. Thanks for the blanket. No problem. I'll bring you the phone plus today and pass it on. Call if anything." Thus began his 15-day sentence, which dragged on. During this time, he unexpectedly received a package from his wife. Victor refused to accept the package and returned it along with the enclosed letter, which he didn't read. He explained to the police officer, "Tell her I don't need anything, but she is now at the warden's office trying to arrange a meeting with you." "I won't meet with her. I won't come out of the cell for a date." The warden came and said, "Listen, your wife is very upset. You know who her brother is." "I know, and even more reason to think. Everyone in the city walks under him. I don't. It's because you're his relative. And how do you plan to live with him in the same city?" "Warden, I definitely don't plan to live with him. As for the city, it can be changed too. Tell me when I will be released from the detention center. It's so important. I want to plan everything. We'll release you at 10 o'clock. "That's great." That same day, Victor called Kevin and said, "Pick me up from the detention center. Prepare a room in my office in the second room. Bring me a suit and clean shirts for the second half of the day. Get tickets for a train to the state capital. I think it's time to move to the next level." "And what about here?" "Here, I have a manager. Control over his work I entrust to you, and I will monitor remotely for starters." A car stood outside in which Kevin was sitting. He drove him to the hotel. Victor washed up, changed, had lunch on the go, learned the city and district news, and after lunch, he took a taxi to the train station. The next morning, he was in the state capitol where he began to create a new business, an idea he had thought through in detention. His business in the district also flourished and brought a good income. Within half a year, he began building himself a new house. Within 2 years, he had established himself in the region, and then a factory in the district center caught his eye. After preliminary negotiations lasting about a year, he managed to significantly reduce the price. Leaving a new manager in the region, he traveled to the district center these 3 years. He often remembered his wife, who remained living there. He loved her, but made no attempt to contact her, although it would have been easy since she still lived in their cottage. In the morning, the train approached the platform. Victor got off the train, took a taxi, and arrived at his hotel, where he checked into a room on the top floor. Half an hour later, the manager arrived. They discussed the business problems in the district. then discussed the upcoming negotiations with the administration. Closer to 12 o'clock, Kevin arrived. Having discussed all the issues, they went to the meeting. Despite the agreements reached preliminarily, the negotiations were tough, but eventually, the papers were signed with minor reservations. Around 7 p.m., Victor returned to the hotel, changed, and went to the restaurant. He sat at a table in the corner. A smiling waitress brought him the menu, placed it in front of him, and Victor made his order and waited. He looked out the window and suddenly felt someone sit at his table. He turned and saw his wife's brother, Jack, known as the Sailor, who said, "Hello, Mr. X. Hello, Sailor. Haven't seen you in about 3 years." Not about, exactly 3 years. It was hard to find you. I wasn't hiding. I just left. Yes, I know about your appearance. They warned me today, so I decided to meet with you. Although, I'm a busy man. I'm aware of your activities, and how you haven't been imprisoned yet. You'd know better. You see, in my office, according to Ostap Bender's principle and as he once said to Shura Balaganov, I'm certainly no cherubim. I have no wings, but I respect the criminal code. I read that very code carefully, and remember how Bender swindled the millionaire Kariko. All the money went to him. He robbed, but didn't kill. He blackmailed him, right? You also created a horns and hooves company and appointed a chairman to take the fall. I run a very serious company that provides a full range of services, and it's all legal, but I want to talk to you not about this. I want to talk to you about Emma. And what's there to talk about? Tell me why you did what you did to Emma, and what exactly happened then, 3 years ago. Haven't you asked her? She said it was her own fault and forbade me to look for you. But you looked anyway. I guess I understood that this guy, whom you knocked out, was to blame, and I asked the boys to bring him to me for a chat. But they misunderstood me, and when they invited him, they overdid it, and he ended up in the hospital. Is he still there? No. He spent about 10 days there, then escaped from the hospital and the city. I never got to talk to him. So if Emma doesn't want to tell you anything, why do you think I'll tell you anything about it? I don't know, but I hope for it. Emma still lives alone. She doesn't date anyone. Occasionally, her friend Natalie and her husband visit, but mostly, she just stays at your house. I asked her what she plans to do next, and she said she would first talk to Victor and then decide. Don't you think it's time to talk? I don't know. I have nothing to say to her. But she has something to say to you. You probably stayed at this hotel. Do you want to visit me, and not just with Emma, but also others? I need to think about it. And while you think, will you leave again? No, it's in my plans to live in this city for a while, and it's cheap to live in a hotel. This is my hotel, as is this restaurant. Excellent. Victor, I invite you to my celebration tomorrow. You mean birthday? Indeed, you remember. I remember your birthday is not until next week. I thought so too, but it turns out I was born yesterday, and because of a registrar's error, my birth certificate was dated a week later. This is a reason for me to celebrate my birthday twice. Come tomorrow to the banquet hall of the restaurant. Emma will also be there. Yes, I'll invite her, and I think you'll learn a lot of new things. But these are not my secrets. You can talk to her about them. Or are you a coward? I mean a weak and spineless person who is broken by a situation that is unclearly complicated. Yes, so that you lost the ability to think and are afraid to face the problem head-on. Am I a coward? I am a businessman who achieved success on his own. Yes, in life, I have been called many things, and if it was an insult, my offenders paid for it. I will meet Emma and listen to her. Agreed. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. After dinner, Victor went up to his room. On his way, security guards unexpectedly stopped him and asked, "Sir, who are you? And what are you doing on this floor?" "Actually, I live here." "What's the problem?" "We don't quite believe you." "Show your guest card." "I don't need one. Having my room key card is enough." "And you live in the presidential suite?" "Is there a presidential suite here?" "No, that's just what we call it among ourselves." "And the room number on your key card would cost you a month's salary." "And how did you assess that?" "By your suit." "Call the security manager, maybe even the police." Victor saw that the security guards were ready to use force and did not wait for this. Within a few minutes, both security representatives were lying on the floor. Victor went to his room and from there called Kevin to inquire, "Kevin, sorry to disturb you so late, but I would like information about Jack the Sailor, an interesting personality as far as I know. He's the brother of your wife, whom you have not yet divorced. He was quite a boss before you left, but he did not bother us much. After an article about you as Mr. X, he quieted down regarding our enterprises, although I know the manager made payments to him. Who else will he still take money from? All this I saw. The money went towards the upkeep of your cottage, but I didn't live there. You should discuss this with the manager. Although I would ask not to bother him for now, he's sick. Can we change our manager? No, we won't find a better one. Okay, tell me more about the sailor. What more? He quieted down and opened a legal office. Regulatory agencies have checked him multiple times, but everything is clean with him. He provides various kinds of services. And what about him interests you so much? He invited me to his birthday tomorrow. And what will happen? I don't know, but my wife Emma will be there. How can I help? I assume you need a gift for the sailor. Where will it be celebrated? In the banquet hall of our restaurant. At least you won't have to go far. Understood. And you warn our security. They have questions about me, like who I am and what I am doing, but they just don't know who you are. And the floor is elite. Exactly. The floor is elite. And it's tactless to ask questions when I'm opening the door with my own key. If security continues to harass guests like this, we'll lose them. And if I'm walking with a woman or invite someone to my room to talk, will they check my documents? Here's what I think. The security will come to me. I slightly rough them up in the hallway. Tell them the guards are fired. Did they attack you? They tried to stop me. At that time, someone knocked on the door. Victor said, "It's open," and a man who introduced himself as the head of security entered. "Good evening. I'm the head of security. Come in." And I asked these young men to wait in the hallway. You violated the hotel's rules and did not obey the legitimate demands of the workers. I've already ordered these two to be fired. Would you like to follow them? But you don't have a guest card. Because I'm not a guest, this hotel belongs to me. As the head of security, you should know that this room is intended only for the founder of the company. Did someone else live here? Where is it visible? Could you not have gone to the reception and asked the head of security? The phone rang. He answered, listening. After a very brief conversation, he apologized and left Victor's room. The next day, Victor reevaluated his wardrobe and concluded that it was time to update it. For this, he went to the shopping center. After a series of purchases, he returned to the hotel. The floor security no longer asked who he was. In the room, Victor unpacked the purchased clothes. At that time, he called Kevin and invited him to drive and look at the factory he had acquired yesterday. Victor agreed, but said he needed to tidy up his new clothes because he planned to go to the restaurant in them in the evening. Kevin said, "Vic, leave everything in the room and go to the parking lot, and the issue with the clothes will be resolved." Understood. Victor left his things as he was told and, thinking, placed money on top with a note, payment for tidying the clothes. He went downstairs, told Kevin about the money, who called someone and said, "The girls left money. I know they won't take it, but you make sure they get it." They arrived at the factory. There was nothing to look at. Victor knew this as he had long had photos of the deteriorating enterprise, once a leading supplier. At Kevin's, he asked, "How quickly can we start production here?" "In half a year, although I'll tell you, individual workshops can start working under reconstruction conditions, and the project construction is already prepared. We are doing it ourselves in the region." "Yes, I know. I am interested in what stage this project is." "It is already undergoing approval." "And how long will it take for the sailors' firm to drag these approvals through?" "They have serious ties in our city. They will sign anything they bring in." "Such a serious firm?" "No, they are feared everywhere." "And I understand they invited you to a meeting with the sailor in honor of his birthday." "Yes, and what? Should I not go?" "I didn't say that. There's no need to quarrel with him. Since he invited, go. Just keep to the sidelines and remember the whole meeting will be under police control, and the sailor knows this. He even knows who among his circle leaks information about us." They returned to the hotel. All his shirts and suits, neatly and impeccably unfolded, hung in the closet. Victor took a shower, standing under the hot streams for a long time, drying off with a towel. Then, after 10 minutes, he looked at himself in the large mirror in front of him, a luxurious man in a perfectly tailored suit, with a slight gray at the temples which adorned him. He remembered lines from a poem, trimmed according to the latest fashion like a London dandy, and finally saw the light. Noted to himself that it was good he had cut his hair when he traveled from the region here. It was time to go to the restaurant. He took the gift bought on his behalf and went downstairs to cross the main restaurant hall, although there was also a separate entrance. Victor walked through the hall unhurriedly, remembering how his wife had caused trouble, and he had spent 15 days detained. His father raised him and instilled in him that a family must be based on trust, Only then can harmony be achieved between a husband and wife, and therefore love. Unfortunately, his father was not very successful at this. First, his mother cheated, running away from home with some friend, and after 4 years, his father met what he thought was a worthy woman and married her. Literally, 3 months later, she began to stray from him. When his father found out, he just broke down. Nonetheless, Victor loved his father very much, and once, seeing how his father cried because his new wife brought her lover into the house, Victor grabbed a chainsaw chain and hit that man on the head 3 times. The man lay bleeding on the floor and then spent a month in the hospital. Then Victor was arrested for the first time in his life but was soon released because he had not reached the age of 14 and was not subject to criminal liability. Returning home, he told his stepmother that he intended to kill her before he turned 14. On that same day, she ran away from home, and he never met her again. At that time, his grandmother died, and he and his father, selling the house in the city where they lived, moved here. His father died 3 years later, turning into a broken shell of a man because of what he had to go through. In his childhood, Victor decided that no woman would treat him as his mother and stepmother had treated his father. Being naturally gifted, he was passionate about mathematics, and when the time came, he chose the economics faculty at the university, where he seriously took up boxing and boxed quite well. He did not intend to forgive Emma. For him, the deception was clear. She said she was going home, and she promised not to approach Ethan. What she did was unacceptable to him. He didn't even want to talk to her about it, but Emma's brother called him a coward for avoiding meeting her, and this was quite offensive to him. He understood she was his sister, and he would defend her. Jack spoke with his sister and told her, "Emma, Victor is in town, and he will come home. He is staying at his hotel, from which he was taken to the police 3 years ago. Yes, this is his hotel, and I think that is exactly why he has not divorced you so far. He understands that in a property division, he would lose a lot." "No, Jack, Vic is not like that. He just loves me. I want to meet him and talk, and for us not to be disturbed. I then made a stupid mistake. After Natalie and I congratulated you, I should have just left the restaurant hall at Ethan's invitation. Worst of all, I even went dancing, although by that time, I should have been home already. Will you help me, Emma? I invited Victor to the birthday and warned that you would be there, and also about the fact that you need to talk. He agreed, not immediately, but I asked what he was afraid of, and he said he was not afraid and was ready to meet you. How do you imagine this? You will have a separate table on the side. You can talk. Only I can't stay away for long. You decide this with him." Emma was nervous before meeting Victor. She wanted this meeting and waited for it, but she did not know what he would say to her after he left the detention center and did not return home. She called her brother, who raised his assistants, but they could not find Victor. At his work, they said that he had left, and where he was, no one knew. And then an article came out in the local newspaper that a local oligarch had been put in jail for 15 days. This information was a surprise to her. She considered Victor an ordinary economist working in a successful company, and he had never convinced her otherwise at work. He had a pass system, and to get to him, one had to call, then he would come down and personally escort her to his office. She had been there several times. It was a small, neat office in which he sat alone. A computer stood on a large table, papers lay there, and on the same floor was the office of the company manager. Finally, as Victor entered the banquet hall, he took the shortest path to Jack with the gift in his hands, congratulated him. It was obvious that he had not noticed Emma sitting aside, who had already congratulated her brother. During the conversation, Jack nodded his head, indicating to Victor where to go. He turned and met Emma's gaze. Jack explained, "She's already sitting, and you're almost late." "Not true. I arrived on time." "Well, will you talk to Emma? Or are you afraid?" "I will talk. By the way, what about the progress of the documentation for the factory I acquired?" "So it was you who bought it. I was breaking my head, although I could have guessed. But your manager is in the hospital, and I did not give him authority to make this deal. I bought the factory, not him. Tell me, do you believe this will bring you profit?" "Jack, I'm an economist and have calculated everything long ago, so you get your people moving. I needed this yesterday. You were cheeky. The purchase agreement was signed yesterday, and you're already planning to make a profit today. All right, go to Emma. I will resolve your issue tomorrow. It's in work." Victor ended the conversation, turned, and walked to the table where Emma was sitting. He noted to himself that the table was a bit to the side and set for two, with champagne and brandy on the table. At that moment, an SMS arrived. He read it on the move. The SWAT team has arrived. Apparently there will be a capture. Victor turned around, approached Jack, and whispered, the SWAT team has arrived. Keep in mind, don't worry about me. After that, Victor quickly walked to Emma's table, sat down on the free chair, and said, good evening. Hello, Vic. It took you a long time to reach me. How are you? Did you call me for this? Sorry, I want to talk to you about that day. In passing, Victor noticed that Jack had disappeared, and several other people had vanished. He leisurely took out his phone and deleted the SMS he had received. Emma beckoned the waiter and asked him to open the champagne. It was evident that she was nervous. The waiter poured the champagne for her and asked Victor, champagne for you too, or brandy? There will be an assault now, Victor replied. Thank you. I'll pour it myself when I decide. Victor was not mistaken. Just as Emma began to speak, a SWAT team burst into the hall and demanded everyone lie down and not move. Victor told Emma, well, I'm not planning on lying down. The SWAT team leader approached him and asked why he wasn't complying with the Special Forces orders. Is this a hostage rescue or the capture of a particularly dangerous criminal? It's none of your business. My documents are in my room. I see no need to bring my documents to dinner with my wife. You can identify me without any problems. I'm Victor Thompson, the owner of this restaurant and hotel. I currently live in my own room on the top floor. This is my wife, Emma. But further conversations will go through my lawyer. And where is your lawyer? Here he is. Meet Kevin. The operation leader turned to them, and Kevin, who approached, asked, I want to see just one document. Who authorized this operation and on what basis? The SWAT team left the banquet hall of the restaurant, but the fun was spoiled. Guests began to leave the room gradually. Victor called a waiter and said, dinner, please, for 3 in the room on the top floor. Attach this champagne and brandy. Vic, sorry, I still have to deal with the Special Forces, and I promised my wife I'd come home earlier. All right, if anything, I'll call you on the way out. Victor told Emma, let's go to my place. We have to talk somewhere. Emma obediently stood up. They went to the hotel foyer and took the elevator to the floor Victor occupied. They entered his room, and a few minutes later, a waiter who delivered dinner to the room, as well as champagne and brandy. After he left, Victor poured himself some brandy and Emma some champagne. After a pause, Victor asked, what did you want to say? Why did we meet? I wanted to tell you what happened then, 3 years ago, and what happened that day. It was a Friday, and I had a shortened workday. Natalie and I left the office when Jack came by and invited us to the restaurant for a short time on his actual birthday. Natalie and I agreed, but we decided that it would be no more than an hour. He motivated it by wanting to see some of his relatives among the guests, as he had no other family. You know, we stayed alone. They were located in the banquet hall. We drank a little, talked, and Natalie and I were about to go home, but we had to exit through the main restaurant hall. I now know that there are 2 more exits from the hall. And how long have you known about them? Then I found out, but everything in order. As we were walking through the hall, we ran into Ethan. He was sitting at a table with friends, was happy to see us. It was about 8 o'clock. Despite our persistence, he seated us at a table. Then the music started, and Ethan took me to the dance floor. At that time, you called, and Natalie answered the call. After a short break, the band started playing salsa. Natalie didn't have time to tell me you had called. She told me about it later when we were sorting everything out. Ethan again invited me to dance. I warned Natalie that after this dance, we were leaving. As we were finishing the dance, you appeared and knocked Ethan down. In the confusion, one of Jack's friends, who happened to be there, led me and Natalie out through the back exit. He brought us our clothes from the cloakroom. He said, girls, get out of here. You can't help Victor anymore, but we will try. And what did they not help me with? You were quickly taken to the department, and they just didn't make it. At least Ethan didn't file a complaint against you. What did he even say to you? Nothing. I haven't seen him since. He didn't come to work and was fired for absences. My brother said he ended up in the hospital, got better, and ran away from there. And what happened to him? I don't know that. I didn't specify. I tried to meet with you myself when you were serving 15 days, but unfortunately, you refused to meet me, didn't even accept the package I brought you, didn't read my letter. It was returned unopened. Everything was fine with me. Kevin provided me with everything necessary, but Kevin didn't say where you were. We thought you were in the city. Jack couldn't even imagine that you would start a new business somewhere else. You asked him to find me, right? And who else could I turn to? All this time, I was waiting for them to bring me a subpoena to court. And you work there, of course. And you live in our cottage. You didn't evict me. And we built the cottage while we were married. Emma's phone rang. After listening to what they told her, she replied, I understand. I'll be there now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She turned off the phone and told Victor, I've told you everything I wanted to tell you. Now you need to decide what to do next. And where are you hurrying to? I need to go home. Is there a man waiting? You could say that. In fact, you can come with me and meet him. Do you think it's convenient? I think it is convenient. All right, I'll go. Victor called Kevin and asked, Do you happen to have a duty car here? As I knew. Come out to the street. The car will pull up to the central entrance. Victor asked Emma, Can I take the brandy with me? He doesn't drink. They dressed, went downstairs, and stepped outside where snow was quietly falling. Near the central entrance, a car was waiting. They got in and drove off. 20 minutes later, they arrived at their cottage. Lights were on, the driver stayed to wait, and Victor and Emma entered the house. A young woman greeted them. Emma, sorry, but he absolutely refuses to go to sleep without his mom. He's stubborn to the point of impossibility. Of course, Kate, you can go. It's already late. Explain to me what's happening. Nothing. My son doesn't want to go to bed without me. Your son? And who's the father? And what do you think? And how old is he? 2 years and almost 3 months. And why didn't you tell me? Why didn't Jack say anything? I asked Jack not to tell you anything. Young lady, do you have far to go? It's quite far. The car is parked there. Tell the driver that Victor Thompson ordered him to take you home, and after that, let him return. Are you staying here, Vic? Yes, there's a guest room right here. They went upstairs to the second floor, entered the nursery, re-equipped from his office. There on the bed in pajamas sat a boy who, excited, shouted, Mom, you came, and Aunt Kate said you would be late. As you can see, I came back. So let's go to bed, and we'll go to Uncle Jack tomorrow. Why? It's his birthday today, and he's coming to us tomorrow. And who's this uncle? I still don't know. I'll tell you in the morning. Go to sleep. Emma turned on the nightlight, kissed her son, and left the bedroom with Victor. They went downstairs. Emma placed snacks on the table and 2 brandy glasses. She said to Vic, I know I didn't tell you everything. I'm afraid I didn't tell you the main thing. Well, what didn't you finish? I've been thinking about what happened. I'm guilty before you. I inadvertently deceived you. I could have left the restaurant. It would have been enough to tell my brother and the whole company. They would have carried Ethan out, but I presumptuously decided I could handle the situation, albeit it was so, but you appeared earlier, and I shouldn't have gone to the restaurant, and especially not danced with Ethan. Moreover, you warned me about him. Shall we drink? Let's. Victor asked, You still haven't told me our son's name. Sorry, so much happened today. The restaurant, meeting you, meeting with the SWAT team. And I named our son Victor. So now he is Victor Thompson Jr. Decide now. What will you do? Will you live with us or without us? And I am guilty before you and asked to give our family another chance. Victor went to sleep in the guest room. Emma went upstairs to the bedroom. At night, someone rang the doorbell. Victor opened it. On the threshold stood a drunk Jack. Hello. I thought you'd be here. Let's drink. I see you've already drunk. Well, it's my birthday. I even saw special forces came with congratulations. I've dealt with that. Someone knocked on the police about how there would be people wanted by the police at my birthday. True. I asked a question. And what was that team about? They said sorry, it happened like that. And many people were detained. No one was detained. They apologized for some reason in front of the toastmaster and left. All right, you say, did you see your son? 3 minutes. They were putting him to sleep at Emma's. It's strict. And why didn't you tell me anything? I said these are not my secrets. Emma entered the kitchen, saw her brother, and asked, Well, why can't you sleep? Emma? Don't scold. I was passing by. At 2 a.m.? You live 5 kilometers from me. Well, I wanted to take a little walk, and after all, 5 kilometers for a mad dog is nothing. Let's drink, and I'll go to sleep in the guest room. Victor is sleeping there. Then he might as well go to the bedroom. And why did you decide we could sleep in the same bed? Because Victor is a real man. Ultimately, Victor, weighing everything into Emma's joy, returned to her. Their son, little Victor Jr., was most happy about this. He proudly told everyone that he and his dad shared a name, even though he didn't understand the significance of everything that was happening. He knew that the name Victor, from the Latin language, means winner, but knowing her husband's character, she remembered that he took a long time to get over any offenses and never forgot them, so she never again gave cause for jealousy. As she valued her family, Jack continued to run his firm, getting involved in various disputes and resolving contentious issues. But he did his job under the management of an experienced lawyer, whom he hired on Victor's advice.